A more than 800 million rand tender to supply critical medical-grade oxygen to some 60 hospitals in South Africa is found to be riddled with paralytic procurement problems.
I think it's safe to say that this is probably the first case that I can think of from the top of my head where a DA minister has been publicly uncovered a patronage network.
Right.
So now we get insight into how these networks work, how they push back, and I find it that's what I find interesting about this whole story.
We get the lowdown on the findings of an independent probe into this vastly dodgy deal with senior journalist Jan Gerber next. Later in the show, the Joburg mom of a child who made her 3-year-old son smoke drugs on camera is now in police custody. And finally, Fly Safair's pilot strike sees domestic trips soar with international price tags.
To know when the next episode drops, hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons on our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast channels.
Stay tuned until the end of the show to hear your voice notes. If you'd like to engage us on any of the topics in this edition, send your voice notes to our official The Lead WhatsApp line. That number, 072 562 3179. My name's Graham Robenheimer. It's Wednesday. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. An independent investigation into a massive government-sanctioned tender to provide 60 of our country's hospitals with critical medical-grade oxygen has now exposed many serious red flags throughout the procurement process. The DA's Public Works and Administration Minister in the Government of National Unity, Dean McPherson, launched an investigation into alleged corruption within the state agency. It's called the Independent Development Trust. That was late last year. Now, the first findings from the PricewaterhouseCoopers probe are now public, and they paint a picture of chaotic procurement problems throughout. Now, to detail what's been uncovered in this week's press conference, we're joined in our Cape Town studios now by our senior parliamentary correspondent, Jan Gerber. Jan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Welcome back to The Lead.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. You basically penned the initial sort of coverage when the minister had entered the fray in the GNU. He sort of certainly set the cat amongst the pigeons at the time, saying he's going to be honing in, investigating the IDT's affairs. There had sort of already been these early red flags here. And a lot of our independent sort of investigative journalists in this country had sort of already raised the alarm here. What was going on at the IDT in terms of this massive 800 million rand plus tender to provide oxygen at hospitals? What were the first sort of initial sort of concerns about alleged corruption here?
Amabungane and Daily Maverick last year, fairly to the second part of the year, started reporting on, the classic story of price gouging, that the company who got the tender didn't have the necessary clearance from the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority.
Correct.
SAPRA. So they didn't have the correct clearance to do that, and I mean it's been proven now with the report that came out yesterday. And furthermore, another typical story of a board that and exco of a state entity that is dysfunctional, which has also been proven by the by the report that came out yesterday. So basically what happened was I started reporting on it when Minister McPherson announced that this independent investigation that he released yesterday. But basically what happened was the IDT, it is a body that has to it's almost like a go-between type of body. They have to procure services for the state to build infrastructure like oxygen plants, like in this case, or schools or social infrastructure type things. So the initial tender was for like just over 200 million rand. Then it swelled to 500 million and eventually 800 million. So around
it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's almost $1 billion. And, it started at 200 million, so that already is a massive red flag. Eventually, that tender has been, cancelled. But then, further, it points to a larger problem with procurement that we see in other state entities as well.
That's ultimately the point, right? It's pointing to this overall issue that we've seen in South Africa for the longest time, which is public procurement problems, and how we've just not been managed to sort of like iron out those issues. I thought I'd fill in the blanks here because I wanted to know a little bit more about what the actual tender was for, which was to install these like oxygen plants specifically at hospitals. So normally hospitals would get oxygen sort of like transported in via trucks. Maybe it's Afrox, one of the gas companies, or that would bring it in. But this would actually be technology that's at the actual hospital that would generate medical grade oxygen right on the spot, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's basically each hospital would have its own little oxygen factory. So I guess you could say that in this case we're dealing with actual oxygen thieves.
Sure. Yeah.
So I can't explain you how these plants work. It's
quite technical.
Very technical, yeah.
The minister soon looked to PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he argued at the time, hey, well, even though it's called the Independent Development Trust, it can't sort of, investigate itself, right?
Yeah, that was, that's one of the bizarre things that happened. I mean, first, I think in November last year, after the initial reports from Bongani and Daily Maverick, he obviously called in the board like, what's going on here, guys? And they didn't give him information and stuff. And then they said, no, we'll investigate ourselves, which is, absurd. So that's when he appointed PricewaterhouseCoopers to do the independent investigation. Meanwhile, the board wasn't even a quorum at the time, so he appointed a new board, basically. With the chairperson was Ms. Beanie Hill. She's been reappointed to the board and re-elected its chair. The new board's term started this month. And meanwhile, there's been all other, there's also questions about the viability, the financial viability of the IDT, and some other allegations as well. So it's just one part of a bigger issue at the IDT. So where we are now, that tender has been scrapped. I'm not sure whether there's plans to reinstate it or what the plan, what will happen going forward with that. And then the minister referred the report to the IDT board for disciplinary steps against the CEO and the general manager for procurement. Also referred it to the Hawks for criminal investigations and referred it to the Department of Health because it was for the hospitals, it was a Department of Health project. So I'm not sure to what extent officials from the Department of Health are also implicated in the scandal. I think that's something that will come out later.
Right, and obviously it's only disciplinary proceedings that are sort of being recommended for now because of the normal standard before the Hawks gets involved.
They have to investigate, obviously.
Well, and we've heard from former Chief Justice Raymond Zondi. He's got not a hell of a lot of confidence in the current ability of the Hawks to open these cases and actually convict people at the end of the day.
There's already a case open at the Hawks, I believe. I'm not sure where it is. Obviously the Hawks tell stuff like that, but it's one of many corruption cases that
needs to be looked at closer. Let's look at the main findings of the PwC report, which has been covered this week. What do they essentially point to, other than the disciplinary action against specifically the CEO, Tebogo Malaka? Their name comes up quite a lot. And as you say, the overall main finding is that they didn't really follow the proper procurement process. The bid evaluation committees, all the various committees, there was poor note-taking. Sometimes the dates were even incorrect.
What's clear from those findings is that somebody didn't want people to understand what happened there in the process, in like the notes. That's a massive red flag. But in general, also the typical procurement processes, which has a lot of inbuilt fail-safes to prevent this type of thing, weren't followed. The big finding against the CEO is that she didn't exercise sufficient oversight over the whole process, and the main finding against the general manager for procurement services is that basically misled the organization about what's going on with the process.
Sure. So there was a lot of also inaction.
basically not doing due diligence.
And then what I thought was super interesting, like minutes weren't even taken.
Yeah, I mean, were they really not taken? We don't know, but it seems like part of a process to keep what happened in that bid committee hidden.
Whilst we wait, obviously for disciplinary action and the Hawks to get involved, those things could still sort of like take quite a long time. Even during the PwC probe, the ministers revealed that there was some serious delays there as well, and some sort of digital disinformation campaign against him and his office.
Yeah, it was. It started in about February. And it was quite, it was very amateurish, It was like supposed voice notes from him that didn't sound like him at all and was clearly done by a computer voice. So like a massive campaign. It gained some traction even among political parties. I think Action SA kind of like repeated some of the stuff, or like Action SA members. So there's like this concerted campaign to discredit him. And when Ms. Hill was appointed to the board and as a board chairperson, it followed, her. And it was the disinformation directed at her is quite bad. It's like misogynistic, racist. And the big thing is that people questioning qualifications without any proof. And what's really concerning is that MPs in the committee overseeing the Public Works and Infrastructure Department picked up on that, ANC MPs, and demands that she show them qualifications. I mean, she's been vetted numerous times. There's no credible information that she's lied about the qualifications.
Sure.
But they've furthering this narrative, which is really concerning.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graham Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072-562-3179.
Right. And this is not the first time, and I don't know if you've picked this up before, but Amabongane reported on this prior in a separate story that is connected to the CEO Tebogo Malaka, that the IDT paid a company belonging to the alleged sister-in-law of the CEO some 30 million rand. This was some projects to do with schools, and then later on, once Amabongane was sort of like investigating, suddenly there was this social media campaign against the publication. Yeah. So this is not like the first time something like this has happened.
There seems to be like an orchestrated machinery in place to discredit people asking questions about the IDT, specifically the CEO. Also, a weird thing that happened was it early this year or towards the end of last year, but around about the time when the minister announced the investigation, the chairperson of the portfolio committee went to the IDT on her own and basically came out in support of the CEO. And then the DA members of the committee, she released a statement expressing her support for the CEO, and the DA members were like, no, this wasn't the committee. We weren't there, So there's a partisan political thing, and it's a bit convoluted at the moment. I think this report will help, clear the air, see what is going on. But I think it's safe to say that this is probably the first case that I can think of from the top of my head where a DA minister has been publicly uncovered a patronage network.
Right.
So now we get an insight into how these networks work, how they push back, and I find it that's what I find interesting about this whole story. It's like it's the first time that you've seen a minister do this type of thing in public.
Right, because in the past, and we've had these discussions before, it would be the DA member or DA MP, outside the Cape Town police station or up in Josie filing criminal charges, hoping, something will come of it. Here we actually have a minister who's in government, who's uncovered this, done it all sort of independently with PwC and sent those recommendations now to his health minister, at the time, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, that was assisting, right? But apparently the work between the two ministers was great.
Yeah, I mean, on a number of occasions, Minister McPherson praised Health Minister Motsoaledi for the way they work together on dealing with this matter, which is interesting. I mean, there's people have there's this perception, and I certainly subscribe to it, that things in the GNU are not working well, especially between the DA and the ANC. But in this case, Minister McPherson expressed strong support to the Minister of Health and also to his deputy, who was the minister in his portfolio before. So, I mean, I suppose it shows that the GNU can work when everybody do their jobs, and also, when people can put politics aside and look at the best interest of the country, because that's ultimately what it's about. You can't spend 800 million rand on a project that should cost 200 million.
Yes.
It's not in the health sector. I mean, it's not to the benefit of the people. So that's, if you could put that first, I mean, then it should work.
Right. And it's not as if, it's just Minister McPherson's department that is sort of the hero in, shining armor, because even the health ministry during the course of it had also raised alarms, as per the PwC report, saying, where's your SAPRA licenses for these 8 entities that essentially got the big deal in the end to provide these 60 hospitals with, bulk medical grade oxygen on site. So also the health department did come to the party.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, it shows you the importance of officials in these departments knowing their job and their responsibilities and, acting accordingly. It could have gone different if there were people who were just happy to look the other way, for whatever reason. So, I mean, I think you could almost say that it easily could have happened that this thing wouldn't have been picked up, because I mean, obviously somebody, I mean, I don't know who their sources were, but it appears that it was somebody in one of these departments, who helped the investigative journalists to uncover the thing from the start.
Right.
It usually is somebody, a whistleblower.
Another Babita Diakaran.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been that person obviously took a chance with their own life, because we've seen what happened in these cases. And we've seen the type of online onslaught that the people behind this are willing to go to. It's the important thing is that government officials doing their jobs and people willing to blow the whistle. It just highlights again how important that is.
How critical is it to the layperson who probably doesn't understand the more finer intricacies of government? How critical is the Public Works Ministry?
Basically, they own all the buildings of the government. So, and they do all the leases for government buildings. They have to maintain places like Parliament. It's a massive department with a lot of assets and a lot of work.
And obviously state hospitals would fall under their ambit. And
I'm not sure to what extent, because
it's shared. The responsibilities are shared across health and public works within whatever the ambit is of their direct work.
But it's also like the provinces, So it's the hospitals would be a provincial
competency.
Competency, exactly. So, but it's a massive department. It can be a massive driver of economic growth through infrastructure projects, and that's what the ministry wants to do. Is like Minister McPherson always say, like he wants to turn the country into a construction site. So it is a massive department that can play a very big role in improving our economic activity, not only in the projects it starts directly, but also in maintaining infrastructure for the improvement of everybody's ability to participate in the economy.
And as we speak, you just came out of the briefing at the National Council of Provinces. Finally, we have a budget. Let's celebrate.
A budget, and the government is still intact. I mean, that, and one of the big things about this budget that especially ANC MPs also going on, is infrastructure projects. The government is investing a lot of money. Like, I can't remember the figure now. It's massive. It's too big for me to comprehend. Probably that's why I can't recall it. But a massive amount of money in infrastructure.
Right, because and also in my mind, I thought the initial sort of reaction that I had to all of this was it takes me back to, remember, former President Jacob Zuma's attempts to bring the R1 trillion nuclear deal, right?
Yeah.
And it was stopped by a private, high court judgment, by a private court application by our activists in this country. And although not R1 trillion, but it's nearly $1 billion that this particular tender is, it's not small change.
It's not small change. And I mean, like I said earlier, it's oxygen, you when you like steal from the public health sector, you are stealing poor people's health. It's unconscionable. and it's one of the places where there seems to be most of the corruption in the health sector. Like the whole Babita Diakuran thing. It was all in the health sector. It's really concerning.
Hugely, because we're playing with people's lives.
Exactly.
And we're playing with people's taxpayers' money at the same time. That's why this story is so important, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's important because will this become a trend that government starts dealing with stuff like this in this way? I mean, for me, one of the characteristics of this process, and it's something I've noted from DA ministers, is they're very frank about what's going on in their departments. Well, typically ANC ministers would be, we have some challenges, we have a turnaround plan, nothing to see and move along, folks, type of thing. Well, the DA ministers are very frank, like, this is going on, this is wrong, investigating.
We sort of kind of like seeing a replay of when, remember the DA took the provincial government within the Western Cape, was around 2008. 2009, thank you. And we sort of, there was a clearing out, so to speak, at the time. There was concerns raised by the new MECs that came in and said, this was a particular issue in this department or that department. It's kind of like playing out, but on a much bigger scale nationally.
Well, I mean, like I said, this is like the only one I can really think of. And obviously there's a lot of work to do in this regard. I mean, you see now like the big... one of the issues in the GNU is like the DA having a go at these corruption-accused ministers being in the executive. And earlier this week, I did a story when the presidency responded to the latest alleged progress report on the state capture recommendations. There's a paragraph where the presidency said, we're not going to deal with these ministers unless they charge. So these same ministers who... will face consequences if they're charged by the NPA, decides on the NPA's budget. I mean, so that's why I'm encouraged when I see like these actions with the IDT, but overall I'm still very concerned that government is not dealing with corruption the way it should.
Right, because
a bunch of corrupt people are in charge.
100%. And let's be honest, Jan, at the end of the day, if we weren't journalists, we don't necessarily know what the IDT is doing or whatever it even is, right? What are they? To end off, what really are they? It's a state social agency.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a supposed government arm change agent for a particular field of work.
Yeah, very
right?
specific niche type thing that, I mean, to be honest, it's not the type of entity that I knew a lot. I mean, I still don't know a lot about it.
Same, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, what I've learned about them is not good. But again, it is something that can be a massive boon to the country if it's running properly.
Or a massive loss to the country if it's not being monitored and suddenly it's given more than 800 million rand and we can't account for it. And thankfully now we're in a position where we've had government oversight and a department which is supposed to be doing the work that it's supposed to be doing. And here's a great example of that. Jan Gerber, thank you so much for your time. Do you think Minister McPherson's painted a bigger target on his back?
Yeah, and he's already got one because he made some remarks about the construction mafia.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, he obviously, where there's a lot of money involved, things get hectic.
Trending topic.
Shifting to our trending topic now, and a Johannesburg mom who forced her 3-year-old son to smoke, which she has since admitted to be drugs, from a bottleneck, all caught on camera, is now in police custody.
Are you gonna pull?
Now show them you can play mad, you run around, you do everything.
Knipe him.
Show them you're getting mad now.
Slow down. Kikuwabele.
Is it well?
Yes.
She's been arrested alongside 2 others following an intervention by the Johannesburg Metro Police responding to a tip-off in the New Clare suburb earlier this week. The video of the incident had gone viral, with a community tip-off leading officers to positively identify the mom in person. After some questioning, the mother then led officers to the 2 other co-accused said to be involved in filming this video. All 3 suspects reportedly confirmed to the Metro Police that they'd been using Mandrax, a highly addictive drug here. The child's since been placed in the care of the SAPS's Child Protection Unit, whilst the trio face charges of child abuse and neglect. Me, like many in the News 24 comment section, remain lost for words. Absolutely tragic.
This is Bruce Whitfield's Business Week. It's powered by Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Business without the boring bits. It's a weekly wrap of only the most important business stories from the world of money and finance on News 24. Each week, we will share just what you need to know in order to help you understand and better navigate a deeply complex, a very confusing, and massively uncertain world. We've got money, we've got markets, we've got millionaires, we've got megalomaniacs, and everything in between. Bruce Whitfield's Business Week, the podcast that respects your time and your intelligence. Helena Wasserman is the business editor at News 24 to help us identify the one thing in the news this week that matters most and will still matter 12 months from now. Just a passing comment, if you would, Helena. We'll pick up with Zwelaki in a moment, our market commentator. But yeah, the market has very quickly dismissed the negative news flow from around the world as the JSE is at 100,000 yesterday, well on Wednesday, and 100,000 again on Thursday. It feels like we're finding a new level.
And the rand's at 1750, almost the best level in a month. I think this week, for South Africans at least, turned out to be much more kumbaya than we thought, with the budget being passed in a very painless manner. GNU still intact. It's basically all Ubuntu all the time, baby.
Well, for now. Remember, we do want to hear from you. Send us a short voice note, about 20 seconds. Tell us who you are, ask us your question, make your comment on our dedicated Business Week hotline, the WhatsApp number 072 562 3179.
And finally,
if you're thinking of booking a quick flight between Cape Town and Jozi this week, think again. With the ongoing Fly Safair pilot strike, peak airfare return rates between the two cities are reaching record highs of nearly $10,000 a pop. That's international prices. Fly Safair itself has confirmed that with fewer flights at the moment, trips are being consolidated. The airliner says it's now currently offering 30% fewer flyer seats. That equates to 18% of the entire domestic market. In other words, fewer seats overall, even in our winter months, means all carriers are now pushing up prices. SAA has proven to be the priciest here, then Lyft, and then Fly Safair. But Airlinks almost completely sold out, so write it on your stomach. Still, as News 24's Andrew Thompson checks in, we may hope for some relief in the prices come next week. But book now to avoid disappointment. From pricey last-minute domestic flights to a paralytic multi-million rand oxygen tender, things are especially tough in Mzansi these days, and we've got to band together to look out for one another, like that tip-off in the case of the Jozi mother who had made her child take drugs. Terribly sad, but if we band together, there's hope after all. Let's have a listen to your voice notes. It's in connection with our previous edition entitled Mashatile's Millionaire Mansions. But who pays for them? We spoke to specialist investigative journalist Kyle Cohen, who relayed to us that the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, has now confirmed to Parliament, he's publicly declared, if you will, that he owns 3 properties, or that his family also uses them, one of them being a 28 million rand Constantia Palace. Let's have a listen to some of your voice notes in connection with this revelation.
As a young man, I believed that the ANC was for the black people, for the struggle of black people. But growing up, seeing what they're doing, it goes back to what the late President Mangwape said, that the ANC ki mmusho wa banditi ba hatlorofo, meaning that ANC is it's a government of prisoners, and you cannot, and it will struggle. We're struggling as black people. Imagine a deputy president living in that mansions, while people in South Africa are still struggling to actually find a suitable house, still living in shacks. But our presidencies and deputy presidents and ministers are flourishing. It's not only Paul Mashatile. It's everyone in government looking up for themselves and not looking at what the people need.
We pay for them, the taxpayer. We are the taxpayers. We must put petrol, we buy bread, we buy milk, you see? We buy clothes, we buy shoes. Where's all this tax going? Straight to them to stay in the houses like this, and he's not even there. It's his son-in-law is staying there. Where is he staying? How many premises they have? How many properties they have? We don't know of our money, and we are struggling here. We don't even have the food. We don't even have water. We don't even have electricity. Look the roads.
I just want to know how long has been staying there, and why now declaring the mansion in Constantia? Why now? That's my two questions. How long he's been staying there, and why now he's declaring? Whilst our people are hungry, people don't have houses. There are some people in parliament who owns millions and millions of rents for their residents. But our people from the ground are suffering. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the most, if not the most, unequal countries in the world, hey? Something's got to give. And that gap between the extreme rich, the corrupt elite, and the poor needs to be bridged somehow, sometime soon. And, a very pricey, expensive national discourse, I am not convinced, will be the correct sort of platform to enable that. I don't know. But then again, we also have to find ways to turn around voter apathy and get more people at the polls. Just my 2 cents for today. Thank you so much for your voice notes. I really do appreciate it. A lot of tough topics to talk about. And it's been quite a hectic week thus far, to say the very least. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, of course, you can send your voice notes on any of the topics you've heard about in today's edition. That number, 072-562-3179, we'll play them out. And then to be reminded of that next episode, the last one for the week, you can hit the follow and subscribe buttons on our Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels. In the meantime, my name's Graham Robenheimer. Thanks so much for listening. And so long as there's news, we'll have the lead.